Hi, this is Brad Humphrey, and this is another podcast for learning while listening. In today's podcast, I want to talk about reigniting a tired foreman. Over the past several months, I've visited with a number of contractors about some of their field leaders, especially their crew foremen. And while not every situation was exactly the same, a common theme involved the lack of motivation or the lack of focus and consistency that was being exhibited by one or more of their crew foremen. Based on a very informal and undocumented survey via my raising a few questions, here's some of the causes that appeared to be present with several of these field leaders: lack of vitality to execute needed work. I heard things such as, "I've been doing the same blankety blank for a long time. Maybe I need a break." Most of these new workers don't care what their work looks like at the end of the day. "Hey, all I do is train these guys on something, and then they don't remember what I trained them to do." Another observation made by several foremen was that they all felt as if the new worker just doesn't care much about work in general. Sort of a, if I work, well, that's okay, and if I don't work, well, that's okay too. Admittedly, my findings are not intended to be scientific in any stretch of the imagination, but it's interesting that some of the major trends among our construction workers, there seems to be a ring of truth here for many contractors who have offered their opinions to me over the past few years about the changing tide of workers in the workforce. But how do we assist those critically important field leaders to not get so frustrated that some of them really do burn out? Well, I think there's a couple of things at work here that we need to address. First, there is the very real issue that many leaders do face some level of burnout in their career. Hey, I've seen this range from the leader thinking that they would rather return to their previous and lower level of responsibility to the field leader considering leaving their company, even the industry. I've even seen owners who have faced those same types of feelings. The other issue at play, I think, is the growing frustration that many in our construction industry seem to be having with what looks like to be a fewer number of employees entering the industry with any level of construction knowledge or experience, some without even any elementary mechanical sense. In addressing our first issue, consider a few efforts that, I think can help your crew foreman regain a bit more of their mojo for being the leader they need to be. Here are some things you might try. Discreetly and confidentially, visit with any foreman when they are displaying some unusual behavior for them. If you notice the foreman avoiding you, increasing calls for tools or information that they could have easily obtained if they had prepared properly, go to that foreman and simply ask how they're doing. Most of these leaders will often share with you some of their frustrations. Just listen. Another idea. Consider giving all your foremen maybe 1 to 2 days off periodically, especially during heavy scheduled work. This can be almost impossible to do, I know, especially when you're hot and heavy into a project. But often just a quick breather can prevent that leader from going over the bar in mental frustration and exhaustion. Visit your weary foreman personally on their job site, maybe even donning some work attire and work along with the crew member or with the crews for a few hours. This is actually a great positive reinforcement for your foreman to have you there in person. Yet another idea is to send your foreman maybe a dinner voucher at some restaurant that the foreman, his wife or significant other would not normally go to, maybe because of the expense, but something upscale from the normal pizza parlor or sports bar. Again, this is just a little token of your appreciation for his hard work in the trenches. Hey, engage your foreman early and during the organizational phase of his upcoming projects. One sure sign that a foreman is getting stressed is when he shortens his time preparing for projects or forgets the little things such as ensuring his trucks and trailers have exactly what they're supposed to have and that everything is safely stored. Giving your foreman a little extra attention here reassures him that he's not in the battle all by himself. Look at other opportunities for your tired foreman to consider. Maybe another area of your company might be a good change of pace, maybe working in that area. If that's not possible, sit down with your foreman and brainstorm for ways to do what he's currently doing, but maybe different. Maybe he's gotten into some routine that is really enslaving him to believe that there is no other way to prepare, organize, execute, follow up, communicate with employees, that type of thing. Get the foreman to look at quality or safety improvements for his and his other crews there. Maybe this little twist of focus might offer a new perspective to what he is doing and maybe help your company at the same time. I mean, some of these foremen are brilliant when it comes to dealing with safety and quality and improvements of productivity. And then maybe a last idea here is start including certainly more appreciation and recognition at your weekly meetings with your foreman, if you're having them, and you should be. These field leaders are often the brunt of all the bad news and rarely receive a lot of the positives from customers when things are going great. They are admittedly in a tough position, being stuck between dealing with customers at the site, employees and all their issues, and of course trying to satisfy their owners' expectations for quality, safety, and productivity. As tempting as it is for most contractors to want to kick a field leader in the seat of the pants, it's important that contractors discern whether a struggling foreman is just having a bad week or is there something a bit more invasive. Watching a foreman for a week or two will often tell you that something more than just having a bad day is perhaps at play. The second issue I'll share with you is even more, though, challenging, I think, as we're really addressing an industry-wide problem. And it's not just the construction industry. Many industries will tell you they're dealing with it as well. Because I have written certainly a lot of articles over the years and have spoken on this that address training and working with employees, I'd rather just use our time today to just summarize a few thoughts for construction leaders to recognize how to make that a part of your future. And if they are to maintain a viable construction company, they're going to have to take another look again at education in some form or fashion. Let me share with you several ideas that I have that I'd like to speak to at this point. Number one, you must screen applicants even more closely to detect who really has the skills and the learning potential and who does not. This isn't easy, but a contractor must cease any form of what I call warm body hiring practices. You have to test. You have to ask better questions, and you have to spend more time interviewing potential workers. Many contractors really shoot their own foot by just skimming the bare minimum of questions and then testing because they need workers. They just completely blow those types of things off. They're in a hurry just to fill the hole on a crew. A second suggestion. You must onboard new workers that fully baptize them into who you are as a contractor, what work processes exist, the values of the company, and the importance that the new employee will play in the company. Throw the new worker immediately on the crew without this, and you simply give the worker no reason to stay with hopes of what they thought they were signing up to do. Win the hire workers over to you, you win them over, and your company prospers. A third suggestion here. Train, and oh yes, train. Come on. If you don't train beginning, even the first day of employment, you increase the likelihood that the new worker will quit you in less than 30 days. The numbers are there to prove it. Pick 1 to 2 of your employees to be trainers, even crew members, who are responsible for teaching the new worker what they need to know to be safe and productive. Do this early and consistent, and you will find more motivated workers who will also reinvigorate your crew foreman. A fourth idea. Plan to check in with your new workers at least weekly for the first 90 days. This is meant for the owner and senior leaders. By having some of the top brass follow up the new workers, the crew foremen are actually motivated as they see their leaders being more engaged with who they hired to work under the foreman's leadership. This activity also keeps the senior leaders more tuned in to who they hired and monitoring the training efforts employed. And again, it's a great motivator for a foreman when they see their senior leaders actively engage these new employees. Hey, reigniting the fire under your field workers, it's not easy. And it's not a one-time activity, unfortunately. Consistency is important here, as in anything of importance, and this issue is very important to you. Should your crew foreman lose their enthusiasm and love for construction, you might seriously think about selling your company and doing something different. I mean, that's how insanely important these field leaders are for us as owners and as senior leaders to be successful as a company. So, commit today to reignite that match underneath that foreman to increase their motivation and their inspiration to do the very best that they can. This has been another Learning While Listening podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. For more information about these podcasts and others, please again check out our app and go to our website, pinnacledg.com, to find out more information about our organization. Thank you for listening. Again, this is Brad Humphrey. I hope you've enjoyed this Learning While Listening podcast.